everyone, welcome to UXPin 2020 Design Trends. Today I'm joined on our interview by Torrey. Torrey, could you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Torrey Podmajersky. I am a UX writer at Google at the moment, and I have worked at Xbox and on Microsoft Education and at OfferUp. And I have been a UX writer for about 10 years now. That builds on my physics degree and my teaching background in a number of bizarre ways. And it led me to write a book called Strategic Writing for UX that came out last year from O'Reilly.
Well, thank you. That's a very, impressive and very curious way of, lead your career.
Yeah, it has been a non-traditional path, but I find that's actually extremely common among UX writers in specific and people who got into UX design in the 15 to 20 years ago range, because there didn't used to be degrees for this and there didn't used to be specific training.
Yeah.
So we had to come into it from wherever we were. Yeah.
But I would say that with your teaching background, writing a book was just the right thing to do, wasn't it? Because, with the educational background, maybe and the landscape of education of UX and UX writers, there's hardly any, schools for that or so.
Yeah, it's hard to get training in it, although there's more and more available online and in person. I got trained as a UX writer. I got my first UX writing job because I had been a teacher, and the Xbox writing manager said, "You've explained things to teenagers in ways that they were successful with." And he emphasized, you were a chemistry teacher. You had to explain really abstract concepts in ways that then they had to take tests about. So come work for me at Xbox, he said. And I did, and it was wonderful. But that's not scalable. I joined a terrific team of people who knew their jobs and helped me learn the craft. And then when I had been working on it for a few years, and then another UX writer I worked with said, there should be a class, and there should be a class in Seattle. And she talked me into, I spent a lot of my time getting talked into things. And we started teaching a class at the Seattle School for Visual Concepts, and we built that curriculum. And so after teaching for a few years and learning more about how to shape the argument for and the descriptions of the various tasks and how to integrate into design teams and how to integrate into product and engineering teams, I then went to a conference, and I went to the Confab 2018 conference, and I realized, oh my God, people are making up this field all by themselves in all of these little isolated ways. These poor people, there should be a book. And I went back to my friend who had talked me into writing or to teaching, and I went, there should be a book. And she says, yes, go write it. So here we are.
Thank her.
Yes.
Okay, so Torrey, please, because you kind of experienced the change, with how the UX writing field was shaped, previously. But we're supposed to talk about the trends for 2020. So please, could you tell me what would be your favorite emerging trend in your field for 2020 or 2020s in general?
Yeah, my favorite thing is that more and more people are recognizing the importance of the words in the interfaces, and that we can actually design them, that it's not just down to the gut feel of the people in the room, whether that's the engineers or the PMs or the designers, and that there can be a science and an art to it that we can learn best practices in and apply them and really develop it as its own discipline and do research around it and have that skill be integrated into the mix with visual design, with interaction design, with the prototyping skills, with all of those other skills. So the trend I'm really looking forward to is UX being thought of less as strictly UX design and graphic design and coming from a visual place, but keeping that visual thing and adding to it the interaction, the writing, the research, the engineering, to make really a full stack UX. And I think it mirrors the evolution of the computer science and of computer engineering, software engineering, where it used to be like, oh, serious people only, work on assembly. That was decades ago. Holy mackerel. And we've gone past that. And we have what we call full stack software engineers who are comfortable at, back end and front end and all of the different ways. And we have people who specialize. And there's plenty of room in the industry and in the field for people who specialize and say, like, no, I'm a fantastic visual designer and I have opinions about colors. Great, hallelujah, because I don't. And then people who also generalize and understand that, and that the generalists and the leaders in the space don't have to come from a visual background and don't have to come from a visual background, but can come from research and engineering and writing. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy that you said that, because I'm really looking forward to, design in general being perceived more as a strategic field, not just, like drawing pretty things or writing, stuff and, like randomly, because UX writing is not exactly only about, the gut feeling, like you said, but
right.
Yeah,
it's not about the gut feeling, and it's not about just having good grammar. It's about, it's certainly not about having good grammar. Have you heard me talk? But it's about getting the job done. Mm-hmm. And here's the way I see it. The strategic purpose of it is to bring the people and the people's behaviors together with the software, so that people are doing what they're there in the software to do, and the things that make the business run, like the reasons the business is there. Mm-hmm. And the engineers, like the software engineers we work with, do all this work to get all of the silicon in the right places and all the electrons flying in the right ways so that the right pretty things appear on the screens. But if they're not working on getting the computer to do the right thing, and we're not working on getting the people to do the right thing, then it doesn't come together. We in UX get to work on enticing the people, on enabling the people, on unlocking those experiences so that they get to really succeed. And that's just super exciting.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the most important goals of UX writing, to me at least, is to really speak the language of the people you are, addressing to. So one of the most exciting trends in UX writing for me would be inclusive writing as a part of inclusive design or accessible design in general. Would you say that you are looking forward to it as well?
I'm so looking forward to it. It is so there's many interfaces that have been built with the gut feelings in the words of
developers
and of product owners who are very smart and very focused. And they think of sometimes simplifying the language as like dumbing it down. Yeah. And that's not what we're doing at all. What we're doing when we're making people deal with extremely formal language and extremely complex language, and sometimes complex concepts that they don't even need to deal with at that moment, is we are slowing them down and we're creating a cognitive burden for them. And they don't need that cognitive burden. We need to do the work to be clear. When we can use the language that is the same way that they would say it, that the user or the customer would say it, we are speaking directly to their hindbrain, right? Like we're bypassing the reading centers. They don't have to feel like they're reading. They can just understand it. And then it feels easy. And that's really the holy grail of accessibility and inclusive design, is reaching people where they are, no matter who they are. And that means doing a great job on localization and internationalization. Because if we're making products that are going to be used by people who have a native language other than our development language, then it's on us to reach them where they are, not to make them, deal with like, well, here's the grammar in English, so can't we just translate every word? That is not going to work, not even in the languages that English borrows very heavily from. So I'm looking at German mostly, but it just doesn't work that way. We have to speak sometimes in local idiom, because that's how people would say it. And that's where our localization professionals come in and say, sure, automated translation says this. No person using this language would ever say that. We need to talk to them the way they are.
Yeah, exactly. And like when you talk about like reaching out to those people all over the world, and like the real, I'm thinking about like the real contact with like almost human to human contact, right? Because at the end of the day, people are not supposed to feel like they're like speaking, like interfacing with an interface.
Right.
But like there's someone out there who like empathize with them, and like thought about them when they designed and developed the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we need to be doing. And I think about it all the time in terms of, like, I've studied several languages and I speak all of them poorly, very poorly. Like it's bad. And then I get confused about, like, wait, I need the number 14. Wait, that's it in Chinese. I need it in French. Nope, that was Italian. Wait. And that, that happens in my brain. So I believe your first language is Polish?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Thank you for conducting this interview in English. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
But this is the attitude that we should have, is that we are all in this together.
Yeah.
And we need to, like, when we are UXers, we are reaching out to people wherever they are in their contexts. And I am really looking forward to, in this 2020s and beyond, that we're going to, that we actually have the AI models to be able to do that better and easier, because it's not easy to scale like one-to-one the interfaces. But the AI only gets us so far, and then we still need that human empathy and that human approach. And we need to know what it's like in that context and how it's different than our gut assumptions being wherever we are. Like, I'm in Seattle, Washington. I have different cultural expectations of, like, what colors I can dye my hair here than we have elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm so happy that you mentioned AI and the human touch of, like how we should control maybe the technology, because I'm sensing that there's this duality in the technology field in general. Like one part, it goes like straight to the technology, like let's make everything AI, but somehow we kind of need like real life humans, whether that's in like brand communications or the design. And I'm so happy to see more and more for example fashion posters being like less photoshopped. Would you say that this is something that we can like call a trend for 2020 as well?
I think that what I don't know anything about fashion posters and those kinds of visual design and marketing elements other than as a consumer of them. Yeah. And a person with very reactive opinions about them as a consumer. But as a designer of the text that sometimes goes with such things, and following the same ideas of, like, wait, why are we representing people as anything other than their beautiful, integrated, flawed, wonderful selves? Yeah. So when I'm writing, like we talked about grammar a little bit before, and it's a little bit facetious, right? Like, I care quite a bit about the grammar, but I care not that it's the correct grammar of my third grade teacher, but I care that it's the grammar that will be easiest to understand in that moment, easiest to use in that moment, and really make the person feel like they are part of that conversation. So using, and the best way to do that, of course, is to include like the people we intend to be using the products, include them in that design process and listen deeply to the language they use and make sure that that's the language reflected in the product, even if it's ungrammatical as heck.
Yeah.
Because that's real, right? And we don't need to dress that up. We don't need to make it fancy or formal or airbrush the language away. I think that, like, I go back to the Mismatch book by Kat Holmes that really outlines this idea of inclusive design as including the people that it's for, whether it's people with disabilities or temporary abilities, because that's all we get on this world is temporary abilities. Someday they're all going to go away, and that's the best case scenario. So, like, when we... Like, I don't know if you've ever been, okay, let me not talk about you. Let me talk about me. Sometimes I get tired, right? Or in an altered state. And I'm like, wait, could you say that more slowly? Like, maybe I just have a bad headache. And I say, this is hard for me to understand right now. Can you simplify it for me? Can you make it easier for me to do the right thing? And that's what we're here for as UXers. Is so that people, whether they're having a good day or a bad day, whether they are cognitively like on tap or they're distracted, that they're going to be successful doing what they need to do with our products. So when we can include people, even when they're having a bad day, that's the best. Yeah,
I gotcha. Well, when I'm happy that you mentioned simplifying stuff, because whenever I talk to UXers about this huge battle between minimalism and maximalism, they're always like, yeah, let's make it like everything minimal. But I'm sensing that you're not exactly, like at this party. Am I wrong?
So I think that one of the really important ways to make text usable is to make it concise and not include a bunch of stuff that isn't needed there, right? So in that sense, there's Roy West says, like, short beats good. Absolutely. For UX text, short beats good, except when clarity beats short. So really, instead of minimalism or maximalism, I'm all about utilitarianism. Like, does it work? Like, whether or not, like, when I get to a point where it's working, then we can play with, does it still work when there's a little bit less? Does it work a little bit better when there's a little bit more? Sometimes you can change the entire feeling of a thing. And we do want to inspire good feelings about our products, usually. You could change that entire feeling with, like, one short little adjective or adverb. And sometimes we should. Yeah. And other times we shouldn't. But that's where the design comes in. Like, we are not going to reduce those design decisions, those creative decisions, to, we can inform them with research and we can inform them with AI modeling, but we're not going to eliminate how rapidly trained humans can make those decisions and make those decisions well.
That's, like, perfect conclusion of our interview. I'm so happy that you like wrapped it up to, like, make UX utilitarian, as you said.
It can also be beautiful.
Yeah.
But it should be useful.
Yeah, but useful, more useful. Yeah, I sincerely hope that will be, like, the top trend, not only for 2020, but for all the years in front of us. And, like, having said that, I'm so happy, Torrey, to have had you here with us at this interview. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very, very much for having me, Kat. I appreciate it.
One second. Could you please repeat the title of your book?
Sure. It's Strategic Writing for UX, and it came out from O'Reilly Media last June.
Okay. So we will have like maybe a link or at least a title.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And
Thank you very much.
Let's stay in touch.